and welcome everyone. Welcome to the AI ML with Python training. So like I showed in the intro video, and I assume that you all got a chance to see that 12 minutes video all about what we're trying to accomplish in this training. I've divided into two levels, team level 1 and level 2. The reason being there's so many fundamental concepts, not just within coding, but things like API side, then getting into AI chatbots and LLMs, the prompt engineering, data science, and machine learning. So these become very important concepts. Post which we are able to go into more advanced. So these 6 weeks, that 6 weeks that we're meeting on Saturday, Sunday, we're going to be focusing on the initial set, and that's going to be Python intensive. So a lot of coding. I will assume with the fact that most of you are beginner level, but the way we will increase our speed, you'll see that growth happening there. So in level 2 is where we will go into more key concepts that become very essential if you're going to be AI automation or AI architect or AI engineer at a very contributing level. But for the topics that we're covering, anyone in the current stream of IT industry as part of level 1 that we're covering should be able to use those topics, team, at your workplace, at your career growth, and so on. So the way we'll get started, most of today I planned for 4 hours. We'll give some breaks in between, team, maybe every hour or so, and then pause for 5-10 minute quick coffee break or whatever, and then continue with what we were doing. We will do a lot of coding, and what I believe we will cover between this today and tomorrow should be the Python fundamentals. I have done this training ample number of times, but each time try and add what's new into it. However, the core concepts have remained the same, team. So some of these could be taught in 25-30 minutes in a quick overview, all the programming essentials. But I think we'll take about a couple of hours. Just want to make sure that we understand how it is. We will also start looking at how we can use take assistance from an AI chatbot and look at a few of the good players in the market. And every day we're having new ones coming in. And there's a new from Twitter or X that we will also play with. That should help us as an assistant. We no longer are just relying on Google search to be able to solve our technical learning needs and also our programming needs as we want. So we will rely and get the help from these chatbots and AI tools. However, for you, very critical that we go deep into understanding each and every aspect. Minimalistically, you should be able to read through a good Python code and say what and how it looks like. All right, enough said. So what are we trying to do, team? Let's go through a few. This setup and how we get started is very simple with tools like PyCharm. So let me get PyCharm here. Oops, the stacking of windows, I changed it. So, all right. So your integrated development environment, PyCharm has been one of the more popular ones for Python. So we could write our code out here. For this, you need to make sure that you have the latest Python downloaded and installed, and then you get your PyCharm Community Edition. And whatever I'm saying, team, you can also do a quick Google search or ask your ChatGPT. Should be able to give you those details. So as an editor, where all of us will do work and which will be easy for me to share, I could do it in PyCharm and then put it into GitHub libraries, or VS Code or any other IDE, team. If you have something that you're already using and comfortable with it, but go ahead. What we will do is maybe go with a Google Colab notebook. So this is something that makes our life phenomenally easy, team. All that you need from typically, it's something similar to your Google Drive, but for coding and development. where you're able to write your code, execute your code, debug it, store it, share it, and collaborate with other developers. So I should be able to share the same link like I shared a GitHub link, and you'll be able to have the access to this notebook. Um, in fact, my only scare is I hope I'm not if I'm introducing anything that is too new team and you've heard it for the first time, it will happen a lot through this journey. What I want you to do is make sure that you write those keywords down as part of the training, and we'll make a nice dictionary which we can refer to, and we'll create an AI agent that will give us more details on what each of these tools, technologies, or terms are doing. So that is what we're going to use for Google Colab. Before I get started, can we do a quick poll question? Just to know the audience, I don't want to keep uh, interrupting as we get into the coding part of it. Let's see which one. And team, forgive me if they're very generic sometimes, the poll questions, but you should be able to see a poll on your screen. Primarily, what's your current career um, role or where you are? And just to see this again, if you look at the first and the last one, working currently and good with my position, same makes sense that okay, all's well, I don't need to upgrade my skills, I'm good in where I am and able to deliver, everything's going well. But the last one, if you see, is working but need to upgrade skills, and that's where you see already maybe there's a threat generalistically that we see at a global level that AI is bringing in to individual tech jobs, but also that what your organization and teams must be bringing in house, that okay, you know what, team, let's go for the next 6 months, we're going to use this tool or that tool, for you to be able to understand what it is and be ready and hit the ground running. That's something you look for too. So I've got about 60% votes, team. The other two are either you have no work experience, you're someone who's still beginning at a career, and that's fine. We have a lot of young kids these days, even a school education that I've seen recently with a trip in my India, 8th, 9th graders are going through a good curriculum on these, and that's surprising. So it's a good skill to learn, team. I wouldn't deny it. I'm closing this poll. I only got 63% votes. If anyone wants to put it in, you can. Let me quickly share also the results. This is what I got. So I didn't get everyone voting in, team, but I, in fact thought most of us would be in the first and uh, second, but I see a huge segment of us in the last one, team, and that's good. And that is the reason I set up more of a weekend training that will help us to even out to our work days, weekdays, to some learning. And team, just as a regular advice, um, we will not be going through I mean, see, you may not be able to accomplish all your goals in one batch of training, team. So we go through this for about 6 weeks. You may still get there 60-70%, but you repeat it, you practice more, you will get there. There's no question. Couple of attempts on this training or any other training similarly going in a flow, I think you should be good. All right, so let's get started, team. I'm back to my screen now. I think most of the focus will be on the notebook itself. So whatever we do, I'll try and put it into our Colab notebook. I was working on a few just to test and see the UI, and for you, the learning curve should not be too tough on how to use this. The good part is I also can do a lot of documentation of my code. So as we go about creating something, you are able to document that as well. So I created some rubbish out here. I'll just delete this and here. And let's call this as a first section, and this is Python fundamentals. So there are blocks where you can include either a code or a text. Let me delete this as well. Nothing here. So double click, go back to edit mode, and I've got Python Pandas. So as we go through each code or what we try and write, we'll make sure that we also document that well. So let's start with a code team. This, when we set up a notebook, so basically what you're doing is, if you say new notebook in Drive, you can pinpoint it to saying that I want to be able to run some of the Python codes and so on. Can I get everyone's hands to be down, team? That way I know if there's a question that I need to attend to, it should be good. And keep your questions, team, coming in. Whenever I give a gap or break, you should be able to do it. So I've created a new notebook, and you can continue to write your text or code out here. The simplest thing, team, as we're writing any Python code, is to understand the syntax. And the syntax is something kept in a way. We've gone through the world of Java and earlier programming languages which had heavy focus on syntax. Python made it simpler, so it should be an easier journey. And one of the most key things is for Python is to hold data. So there are topics called, whenever we look at data, there are four things, team. You do a CRUD operations, like you create, you read data, you update any data, and or you may delete a certain data. So at the end of it, any software application is trying to look at not just text and few things, but also data behind it. So how do we hold data, and that becomes your variables, team. So as we build through, you'll understand that there are multiple ways and simpler ways to do things. You can give it a name that you want to call and hold something in it, like let's say panda. That's the name I'm giving. And let us say the age of this panda is a number, and I say 40. And the information so far that I've given into the code is just that, you know what, store this data, but I'm in fact not doing anything out here. So this, what I called here, a new notebook, let's call this PyFundas 1. And I'll increase the font so it'll be clearly legible for you. Hope this is better. So what it's doing is it's using Python 3 team as a compute engine in the back end, and trying to execute our code on the cloud. So whatever we're doing, there's nothing locally being done. So you can even use a Chromebook and so on to be able to do it. I don't know why it's still connecting. Initializing, there we go. So it didn't print anything at the moment, but let us say I print a string out here called name, and each time what you're doing is you're updating your code and you're running it. Uh, and anything that we give within double quotes is basically saying I'm storing string of any characters alphanumeric as long as it is mentioned in it. In this case, I want to print name, and maybe I also want to print the age of it. So I'll say age, name, comma, age in the same sentence. So all I'm doing is making sure that I'm able to create any information that I want in a simple way and hold it. You always get a chance to be able to change the data, modify it, and be able to put it anywhere else. Um, what we're doing is we're just going to look at different data types and then what we are able to achieve with it. So let's say I make it 41, and let's say this is Fanda, and I rerun this code. You see, team, how easy it is for me to be able to run such a code. So once I build a few more things, I'll be able to share this access to you, and you should be able to start contributing as well. I can make you as I'm sorry, a contributor, and to be able to add. Let's look at what are the different data types. So when we say data types, the reason is very simple, team. Um, at the end, everything that we're doing has to get stored in the memory, and it will require some amount of bytes um, to be able to store that. So depending if the information is a string or an integer or a number, you are looking to provide according the space needed for it. So the simplest data types that we will work with are things like a number. And you can also declare, there's no need to mention, but as a good programming skill and the fact that I will continue to use the n1, which is the name that I've given of type integer, and I'll say I put some number into it, 11.22. And uh, auto suggestion, that's good for us. Print type n1. All I do is tab, and my Google Colab is helping me to uh, finish some of my code that it is expecting that I might be doing. And what type method is doing is just printing the type of it. So let's build in the numbers. Though it is, you're saying it is an integer, there's no strict guidance team. A lot of things will let the end user, a developer, do whatever they wish to do, team. But you as programmer need to take that additional stress and say that you know, I know this is an integer because the way it is defined. I will continue to use it as an integer. Python may not put a checkpoint for you, and that is something that you have to be cautious on. All right. So what am I doing? I've created 3 variables so far. First is an integer because it could be a positive or negative number. Next is called a float. So any number that has a decimal, positive or negative, it becomes a float. So the data type itself is float. str is your standard terminology that we'll use for a string. String is nothing but a text, and your string doesn't have to be in 30 seconds. It can be numbers or characters, anything, as long as it's in double quotes. So in Colab, instead of print statements, you could also do like simple, sorry, writing down the names. Let me do one more. I think the other one is a Boolean team. Boolean is, let's say you have an option. So O for option is what I'm saying, and it is a Boolean. The fact that any programming language requires decision making becomes very critical with this variable. It holds only 2 things, team. It can either have a true or false in it. Those are the 2 values that you can add, not as strings, as a direct word. So just say true, or you could say false. And that basically tells you how a decision tree would work. Now, not 0101. What am I doing? So if you've noticed, anything you see in green is a comment, and that primarily starts with a hash symbol at this beginning of the text, and anything coming after that is basically saying it's basically saying that what am I, where am I, sorry, that ignore it, it's a comment, it's something that I put as a note for myself or our human reading, nothing to do for Python to execute. So let's do a quick execution and see if this n1 d1 t1 works. So it printed what all type, and after type I don't think it printed true. Anyways, so it did print 11 n1 d1, and it printed type. So this inconsistency not needed, so I'll just say print. Then we have d1. Let me copy this, print. I'm only printing one type. So you can print a type of any of these to be able to get to know what it is. Depending on that, your program could do certain things. The next 10-15 minutes, team, I'll just quickly go through the syntax. Then we'll apply it into few simple exercises that will make us start thinking. Getting there in 30 seconds. So it's printed everything that we wanted. Perfect. So this primarily gives you that you're able to store data in a manner that is easy to retrieve later and do anything that you would like with it. Whatever you see and we are learning today, be it simple or complex, is something we're going to continuously apply team, and that will become very important for us. Let's look at a few more data types. Primarily, when I say few more data types, I'm referring to something that is holding different types of data. There are times when you want to hold information about multiple people. This is all right, one person or a few individuals. Why should I keep on adding details or variables, name them individually? Why can't I group them together? So for that, you have your basically data dictionaries. And the simplest one will start with something called as a list team. The simple differences of these, I don't expect you to master all of them right away, but as we apply it, you'll understand. So a list could be anything that is a combination of numbers or string or text and so on. It basically says that I have data for this in three sets of data. And for me, I can print the entire one. When we go to classes team, you'll see how you can print an object easily, or I can print a specific one. When I say a specific one, this is more like an array concept. It is not, does not come with a full built thing, but a list is something that holds data with the same name. So one name, but I should be able to hold three sets of data. So for example, similarly, I can create someone like a user one. It's still a list. And I'll say this is the employee ID, EMP001. And I'll put age here. So I know what is there in which position as of now. And we will have to then look at a challenge and then understand I want them to be in a specific labels and so on. We'll look at them. So at this point, your count starts with 0. Whenever you're looking at items in an array or a list and so on, the first element, so the square bracket says it's a list team. Oops. The first element is your element 0. So while there are 3 elements in this, and let's say we'll put one more and say this is Los Angeles as a city, and 4 elements here, the way I can call them is this. Now let's say I do L1 3. So we're getting one after the other. Sorry team, if I try and slow down so that I can emphasize on certain concepts very importantly. And I'm still on L1, not going to the user one yet. So there are two different lists that we're looking at. And this is where team, we as learners or programmers need to slow down and absolutely be happy that you've got an issue that you have to resolve. And there are two types of issues team. Sorry, had to take a sip of water. One is there is a syntax error. Syntax error is when you write some gibberish that the program can't understand. And even before execution, it says, looking at it, I can't do anything. And then there's your runtime error. Runtime error is when you've written your code, you want it to run, and you don't know, somewhere unexpectedly something came up. Yes, you can catch that and handle it, but first you need to identify why it occurred so that it doesn't reappear for you. All right, cool. So that's my runtime error where during execution. And whenever you get this team, if you already know the answer, good. But if you're someone beginning into it, try and look at where the issue occurred and what is it trying to say. So the most simplest thing is, instead of getting confused with all the other details, try and go straight towards the line number where it's occurring. It's pointing to line 34. Let me get some line numbers here. Tick, tick, tick. How do I get line numbers on the code? Line numbers are always useful, team. View, show head code, show head output, table of contents, notebook info. Let's see. It should be maybe settings. I don't know. Editor, show line numbers. There we go. So I really didn't know where that feature was. So a quick exploration, and I think we should be able to find most of what we need, team. Are you liking the Google Colab that we are using, team? Do you think it's something that you could use as well as you go on? Let me know in the chat. So at this point now I know where my line 34 is, and the fact is it is index out of bounds. So basically you're going to the fourth element, it doesn't exist. But the same thing if I do it for user one, I should be good. Why? Because I have those number of elements. Come on. u1, u1, u1. And even if an AI tool will write all of this, team, you will need to debug it. And to be able to debug, you definitely need to understand how we go about slowing down and looking at everything one by one. So let me run a couple more of these, explain a few more, then I'll take any questions that's coming from the audience. All right. Runtime error. So we got this, we know where it occurred. So what I'm doing is instead of deleting that line, I can just comment it, and I know that that won't execute. But now we have this. A red is showing that maybe it's a previous run was an error. And it also shows me history, the good. This is a nice way to keep everything together for me, team. Not only code, my reports, executions, what happened, and so on. Let's see. I still have an error. Ah, there we go. Syntax error. Let's see if Control Shift. There's a group comment. I don't know if what it is in here. All right. The Control Shift / would basically do it in your IDE, but I don't know what it is in Colab. We'll figure it out. So let's redo. I think we've got what we wanted. See each of those items in that list. So list has basically items. The thing about lists is you can change. So they're ordered. We know which is in which position, and they are in a specific. They can be. They don't have to be unique, and you can change them. You can have the same data repeating again in it, and it should not be a problem. When it comes to another data type, and that is where you learn it, team, when we use them more, is the tuple. With this, what happens is the only main difference is I'm using a round bracket instead of a square bracket. And let's say I'll put some details like things like an XY coordinate or a position of a map coordinate. So something like that could become my data set. I can still call it just like saying tuple print tuple one, like tuple, oops, one. What would it print? The second element. Count start with 0. The first is always going to be this. So here, the main thing is they're immutable in the sense that once you assign what it is, you're not going to be changing any of these values T. So you cannot add or remove items to it. And that gives you flexibility, especially around tuple one here. Where I was writing? I'm trying to also look at the chat box where a lot of messages were coming, but didn't get a chance to read them. So immutable, can't add or delete. In fact, how to add or delete to a list, we'll look at them in exercise rather than very theoretically. So that's your tuple. Let's use print around it. Just a variable should be fine to print. And this, I love staying with the keyboard. Oh, wow. When it's a tuple one, do you know why it's printing whatever I've given here, team? I was like, okay, why am I still getting it? I've given tuple 1, I'm supposed to give the name that I gave to that data set that I called this cod1 1. All right, re-execute. I need to see keyboard shortcuts here. Ting, 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 ting. It'll be interesting. Nice. All right. So two more types. Team. Why do we have so many different types? It's just the need which makes us depending on what you need. And then you have a set. Set is basically everything is set in it. You basically are not changing anything around it anymore. So, and you are making sure that they're all unique, team. I mean, you can add and remove, but the thing is, I cannot have another 6 out here. So they have to be all unique in that series. The final one is a key value pair. These are the only main ones, team. And even if you go to JSON and we go to Pandas and all that, with these key concepts, you should be able to get a good idea there. Key value pair basically says, I don't know what 233 is. I don't know what 456 is. I see that you're saying employee ID is here. I don't know if 45 is age or street number or what is it referring to? Where are the labels for it? How can I hold data that and then I can retrieve it by something called a key value pair? This is a combination, team. Key is the name of the data that you're doing rather than picking them up by position. You are picking them up as a name. So I can say something like data one is it, it's primarily what we have inbuilt is a dictionary team. When we go to pandas and so on, it is exactly the same concept. Starts with the curl brackets, just like you said. And in this, the prime difference is I have two parts to it. I have a name. So I'll say the name is employee ID and colon, the value that I'm giving into it is, let's say, 001. I don't think I can put 001, but let's see. If it is, I have to give 001, then it is in quotes, because if it's a number, it'll eat away those leading zeros. And the same I'll say is age. Oh, wow. Thank you. It realized that I'm trying to copy it from here. That's smart. And if you've noticed, team, whenever you want to write, let's say I want to insert a new code here and oops, a text. And then I'm looking at a code. So autocomplete, it definitely is a big help, team. Look at how much I would have had to do to recreate. All it did is it recognized my pattern of what I'm trying to do, and it did it. Did I say that Kenny was a name? Did I say that city was Los Angeles? How did it figure that out? That's a very interesting, team. And it's trying to be a guide to you as you write the code. So in this case, everything is given one name called D1, but I can go to specifically any key value. So what is my key in this case? Let's say I want name, then I print the name of it. Oops, D1 name print, D1, let's say city. So it doesn't matter if there are 100 or 1,000 or ample number of data sets. I don't need to know the order. I just need to know that what is the name of the key, what is the value of that key, and I'm able to refer it with that. So this gives me a lot of ability, team, where I'm quickly able to go through and um, recollect or get whatever data I want in a quick fashion. So what did we do here? Autocomplete. What did I do here? Nothing. So we were printing this. Okay, I don't, did I put this as a code autocomplete? Yeah, something here. Oops, that's fine. I don't need to do that here. All right, team. So there are still few more concepts that I want to talk to you about, things like constants and annotations. We'll get to them, team. Not everything will become very important, and that's the reason I wanted to make sure that we focus on the core concepts. Let's hide this output for now and move up the code. What I want to definitely show, if time permits, is I mean, right away before we take another break or questions, is details about functions, team, how we use functions and classes. We could cover that. We could cover dunder methods, and then we can get into playing around with lists and a few more things. So let's see. What we're covering next is functions. So D1 team is dictionary. So, and the standard W3 schools has a good reference to the same thing, but let's say I think we need some faster learning tools these days, and we have to adapt to it. Faster learning. What am I doing here? Okay, functions and classes. What are these two and how are they different? We'll talk about them. And we will do a few exercises, team, which will take a requirement. We'll talk about how we write a small logic or algorithm to be able to help us execute that. That is something we'll get into, all right? Ting, ting, ting. Questions. Let's look at chat. I think I need to bring it up here because it's too small a font out there. Where is it? It's gone. Any questions, team, from you? Any of you? While I look at the questions out here. Sure, we can use PyCharm. I'm using Colab from Google, but we can also use PyCharm. So what are we doing here? Or in fact, the next exercises or projects that we're doing, let's take it into PyCharm. It is all right here when we're doing simple scripts and so on. But let's say you're doing a project with libraries and a lot of things, that's a good place to be. Team, there are a lot of questions in the chat, but if any of you have still a question that is not answered, can you put it back again so I can look at the latest questions only then? Should we be following along in the environment? Not during the live session. Since I am also going pretty fast, it'll be very tough for you to type at the same time, execute and compare and see my screen. But as soon as sessions are done, you can, what I would suggest is don't take and copy the code, team, write it down, write everything down, character by character, word by word, and keep them. These are the most important notes that you can carry for a reference before interview or any other things that you're doing. Most widely used Visual Studio, PyCharm, and there are new ones coming like Colab and so on. Should be good for Python IDE. Let me open W3 schools once. All right, so in here, there was one nice quick summary on the difference between these. Let me put it there so it's easy for you to compare as well. Text, let's put some text. I don't need this. There you go. So there was one question, team. Someone asked a difference between tuple and a dictionary. So basically, you still have it based on indexed, and there is an order, so you're calling it by that specific index number, and you cannot change it, team. You can have duplicate members though in a tuple. The biggest dictionary difference between a list, a tuple, or a set to a dictionary is the way we're using key to get the item referenced rather than using a position in that list. Increase the font size a little bit more. Let's do that. I think I'm zooming. I don't think I increased the font size. Let's go to tools. Where are my settings? Should be good. Team, some of the questions keep coming in terms of, let's stay if possible to the topics that we're doing, like things like recording sessions and all that. Like I mentioned, even in the intro video, everything will be available. Don't worry. This session is being recorded right now. We've done about 45 minutes in it. So let's learn a little bit more on functions and classes, team. We'll take a quick break after that, and then we'll dig deeper into doing some small assignments together, and you can try and take a few of these back home to practice as well. After we finish today's sessions, tomorrow we'll be doing some more on API and so on. All right, let's go to functions and classes, team. The reason I'm trying to give these as a quick overview is once we get this head start, it's easy for us to go in and do something around anything. Um, there are lots of things that you can import and start using, team. So we're not importing any external libraries. So as a standard, what comes inbuilt with Python is what we'll try and explore. So let us say I have two numbers, a equals to 10, and I can in fact assign multiple variables on the same. See, it was doing it for me. A comma B comma C. Okay. And it didn't suggest anymore. So I'll say 10 comma 20 comma 30. You know what? I'm going to take this into a new code. Control X and taking a new code here. And let's A, B, C. All right. And is it doing a print for me? It only printed C, the last one. But primarily, let's say I want to print A plus B, team, and you want to give something like and print A plus C. Oh, come on. I need to learn to use this autocomplete better. And this would basically give me whatever it is able to execute. But I want to, let us say, do something more repeatable where I'm saying numbers given are, in this case, it looks easy. There's two numbers, maths and so on. But when you build software applications, um, you'll say that. Then I'm printing A, and then I'm printing B, and then I'm saying print the total is equal to, comma. In here, I'm saying it is A plus B. So instead of this, what I'm doing is I'm creating, I can do A plus B as it's saying here, or you have C equals to A plus B. I don't even know why I'm writing such a stupid code. There's no logic or anything in it. or print C. So what am I doing here, team? For printing, I have these following steps for adding. Add my numbers. And if I have to do this for a different set of numbers after changing my ABC, C doesn't matter, it'll get overwritten anyway. So I have to repeat this code. And all I'm doing here is I'm making A equals to A plus 10 each time, or just a change, and I'm incrementing it by a value of 10. I didn't even do the. hmm, I'm sorry, I just got lost in what I'm trying to achieve here. So you have repetitive code, team, and that is where you can quickly be able to create a function instead of all of these and pack this into one specific block of code. So what we'll do is out here, I'll create a function. I'll call it as definition or define, and I'll call this as fadd, a number name that I gave. And what we're sending in here are two variables, team. You don't have to name them exactly what you name them in your call to that function, like A and B. I don't need to put that there. But what I need to make sure is the order in which I'm sending it. You can also change the order. There's a lot of flexibility. Make sure your tab indents are correct, team. Some of these basics I must have little skipped on to it. The what am I trying to say? The same code now I'm saying there are two inputs coming in. There's an X and then there's a Y, and I'm doing C equals to. Oh man, it almost helped me with everything. I just need to look at its suggestions before I do anything. So what I did is this block of code. When I need to talk about a block of code, typically we've seen them being surrounded by brackets or curly or so on. And that becomes something together, like in this case here. When you're creating a function, the way we're saying that this is a block of code is by using an indent. So one tab after from the new line till the end becomes your function, team. So if I print anything or write anything here, this is outside the function. So visually is how you are able to figure out that this has happened. Now, for me, instead of having to do all of this, fadd, and all I can do are these, like call the same one, but each time I'm sending it different input sets, and it should solve my purpose. Let me see if I'm able to comment these or just delete them. No, I can't comment here. There's no right click in comment. Ting, 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 ting. Add a comment. That's fine. I'll get some extra outputs for now. Let me do this in the end. So when you scroll through a code, you should be able to quickly figure out that, oh, this is a block of code. So any lines that you see from here to here is one line of code. So out here, instead of all these lines have been now replaced by a simpler call to this function. A function has a name. You can send variables. You don't have to send variables. You basically are saying that there is no return to this function, and that is okay to have no nothing being returned out of it. But you can also return a value team. We will explore a few of those. I just want to show you how a basic function looks like. So I've got those, and then finally, let's say this is inside the function. This is from fadd. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Okay, same thing. The the reason I've showed you this team, and I've tried to stick to very fundamentals in this first hour session, is to make sure that you all practice the same team. I could have shown you the code and just read through it, but that was not the intent of what we're trying to do. You want to be able to write the code individually and take assistance of any tools that are coming your way. That should be fine. So team, let's take a quick break before we continue next. I want to make sure that I just talk about if for if statement, for loops, and also the classes. That will give us a good hold on the fundamentals of what we're doing, and then we should be able to go further. Any questions, please, before we wind up, or should we meet in 10 minutes and then take any questions? It's up to you. Let's see for a few. And team, today we have a 4-hour session. So that means we have completed an hour out of it, which basically means that we still have 3 more hours. How's your appetite overall? Is there too much that you're digesting, or we still comfortable? If needed, and if it's too much for a first day session to have too many topics, we can do a shorter session today, depending on how we're progressing. Take some more easier topics as we do, and then again meet tomorrow. Okay, cool. All right, team. So there are a few questions like, how to print both key value and from a dictionary, X and Y, how are they related? So um, some of these team, just do a quick Google search. It may not be relevant for the entire audience as of now. There's a very specific agenda that I'm trying to accomplish. So if it is a simple how to do this, how to do that, just do an AI or Google search, see if it helps. But if it means that there's something we're doing as part of our code here, then we'll change it. Okay. Okay, cool, team. So we're taking a break. Yes, it's 8:01 my time. Let's meet back at 8:11. I will hopefully, I'll keep the session on. I'll just pause the recording. And if there's anything that you need, you can ping in the meanwhile. Thank you. All right, team, welcome back. Sorry, I didn't pause the video on time, so there could be a little pause of where there was no audio before this. But we'll get going, team. There was a good article that was shared by one of the participants during the break, and it looked good for comparing how lists, arrays, tuples, sets, and dictionaries are different from each other. It's a nice representation. So look at that, and I'll also put that here. If you find anything interesting, team, please do share. It's good to have the team start collaborating on things that way. All right, great. So what's it? What's next? What are we doing? One of the things that we have not done, team, are and one of very critical from a programming perspective are conditions, and then we'll go to loops. Conditions are basically saying if a certain criteria is right or not. So if I have two variables, a equals to b and a equals 10, and all I'm doing is I'm comparing if these two numbers are equal. And you could also do things like less than, greater than, less than, equal to, and not equal to. And what we are trying to arrive at is the fact that this condition, let me zoom this a little. The fact that this condition is true. So this eventually, whatever I highlighted becomes a Boolean, and it'll return or get replaced with a true or a false. And that is where an option comes in. And here is where your indents, just like what you saw a while back on functions, you create an indent to say, this is my option one, where the statement is true. And you can do anything that you want based on that. So since it is true, I'll say do task A. Now the same, I'll say, I think, so there we go, perfect. I expected it to do something, do task A, do task B. So else is the other portion where it is false. Whatever we have said is false. And based on that, we are having to do a few things, team. So this decision making is a constant activity that we will do with the program. And it will guide us towards understanding how things are working. You don't have to monitor. So when it comes to any automation, anything, this is the simplest form of it. Now you could do simple things like how to find if a number is prime. What is a prime number? Oh, sorry, actually, let's not even go to prime for now. Keep things simple. Even or odd. So even and odd, the concept is if it is divisible by 2, it is even. So now instead of me hard coding the number, I want the user to be able to start interacting with me. So I'll say there's a number that I want the user to input it to me. So far we've been hard coding and putting everything in here. When we go to files and a few things, you'll start referencing external files. But in this case, I'm asking the user, halting at this point and say, enter a number, something like this. Perfect. So if it is, that is a prompt of a text that is given to the user, and then we are entering some information here. So I'll say print n1. How do I know what data type this is of? So I'll just say type of this specific data type, whatever is created. So n1, we did not say it is an integer, a string, a variable, what kind of, or a dictionary or anything. So when we enter something here, let's say 45345 whatever, and hit an enter, it basically says then it is a number, but I thought it is a string. Anything that you're entering within an input comes out as an output as a string, team. That is where your string conversions become important. So here I can also enter a password. It doesn't matter. But what I'm looking at is convert this string. So if there's more code that I'm writing, only so that when you reference back, you'll know that, oh, we did it this way. But here I'm saying there's n2, and I'm going to convert my string to an integer in this case. A lot of situations where you will do data conversions, and this becomes very important, team. And there are file conversions, file formats. You have XMLs, you have JSONs, you have PDFs, and when it comes to the AI ML world, you have all of those different formats of videos and audio and so on. So how things get converted from one type to the other. So in this case, if I print, I'll just get N1. This is N. It should have suggested code edit also, maybe, but that's fine. So at this point, the first one enter a number. So it'll be the same, whatever I enter, it'll do it. The second one, I am entering specifically a number only, team. And what do I get? So now I get a class of integer. So this simple difference is very important thing. Difference between integer and float, or a double that we thought of in earlier, is as simple as integer, no decimals, positive or negative numbers, whole numbers. Decimals, the ones with any decimals that you can put into it. So we've converted a string to an integer with this, and I've got my input. So what is my logic in this case? How do I know if it is an even or odd? So let me put this here. It doesn't have to be a separate topic, but it's an if statement, team. But how do I do it? It won't even let me write my code. Did you see what it's doing, team? This is exactly what I would have written as well. But that's the fundamental beauty of AI, team. And with Gemini being in the background for it, it is really getting smart to be able to say what it could do as a combined programming. So the AI features you will really get amazed with as you keep going. But as simple things as this, text completion, code completion, logic completion, and that's interesting. This logic got written by Gemini. Now, if I needed to do the same thing, just imagine my human task team. Think of it, go think of a nice prompt. Prompt is what we will put it into any of these chat bots and so on. And then you see for what's coming out of it. Now, the whole process is into I'm writing the code and I'm getting my answer of what I want to do right here. And perfect. So the logic, yeah, is simple. What is this percentile? I'm sorry. Yes, the one issue is there's no documentation around it. It's just giving you the code. But it's a moduli symbol, team. What we're doing is we are dividing n2 by 2 and seeing if there's any remainder. So let us say we take a number like 15 and I divide it by 2. So evenly I'll divide it as 7 plus 1 divided by 2. So there's still a remainder of 1 in it. And that is what it is looking. If the remainder is 0, it is an even number. If it is not, it is an odd number. That's it. As simple as that for us. So if I run this code, do you think any issues might come? I'm sorry for the cough. Do you think I might face an issue? No, it didn't. I think it happily ignored. No, it is. Yeah, it did ignore. But what did it print in line 18, 19? How did it get value of N1 if I didn't enter? Did it take it from the previous? Interesting. Okay, anyways, so let's enter a random number. And I know if it's, yeah, enter a number, ding, 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 odd. So that's basically what it is saying, that it is an odd number, and that's how it is. Now, the same thing I wanted to use. I won't jump into the AI tool team. X.AI also, that's a good one that recently has come up. It's doing well and still playing around with it. But let's keep it still to trying to figure out logics for ourselves. So uh, simple things like these, team. And an if statement doesn't have to be just comparison for two values. There could be multiple options that it could happen. Let's say I want to build a simple calculator where we send numbers and operator. So depending on what the operator is, I want this to do that for me. All right. So I'll stay N1. In fact, let me copy these. I don't need too many print statements. Get rid of this. Get rid of this. Oops. Enter number 1. So there are two numbers that we need to send, correct? And then an operator. And here also I need to make this as an integer because we're all talking about numbers. So this math is simple, team. All we're doing is simple arithmetic additions and those operations. What will get interesting is once you get these fundamentals, you can't, I mean, you don't want to come back to this again. So make sure that you get that setting correct. Enter number 1, enter number 2, and keep practicing. There's no data conversions needed here. Now, what is it that I want? An operator. So I'll say op1, op1. The naming conventions are much flexible, but if you look at anything standard, oops, let me retry with the help of it. Perfect, perfect. There we go. It's also giving me the base code. So in this case, it did say else if. Elif is nothing but else if, team. Here, I'm taking an operator and I'll say the operator, enter an operator, and I'll ask them to enter only these symbols. You can enter plus, minus, divide, or multiply. Okay, these are the 4 characters that I'm expecting. So the user must enter one of these, and that is what I'm comparing. If it's a plus equals to plus, then let's do something. If it's equal to minus, then let's do something. And you can continue to do this for more else if, team. So each time it is going to your operator and seeing, that's the verification as to what it is. And now let's say it's multiplication. And I'm printing now n1 star n2. Else if operator 1 is division, then n1 divide by n2. See, just plus, minus, star, and this. And then there's an invalid operator. So if I've entered anything other than this, then it is giving me an invalid operator. What we're trying to do is execute this a few times and see how it works, right? So let's execute it once to at least make sure that it is debugging fine. Okay. This is for the other ones. So I'll just finish that and enter number 1. Now that is, let's say 22, and then enter number 3. Let's say is 3, number 2, and then operator. I'm putting a divide, and that's my output. And you basically are able to choose how and what you can do, team. But uh, this is something that, let us say I'm using it regularly and I want to be able to repeat this multiple times. So how can I repeat anything a few times, team? So that is where loops come into place. All right. Your loops basically tells me that I want to go over, iterate certain things a few times. And something like, let's say I want to build a multiplication table. Okay. And once I get a number from the user, I'll just send 1. I'm sorry, I'm using the same variable name, but I just like to keep it short and relevant. That's the intent. And enter a number. So I'm taking a number, and what I have to do is I need to multiply that number n1 star 1 and print this. Oops, it's buffering. 10 times. And each time I'm having to increment this by 2, 3, and so on. This would work, but that's where we need to enter some kind of logic where this is being done automatically for me. And for that, one of the simplest things is your for loop. For loop makes life very simple, team, for us. And you iterate over a set of data. You can put a list in there, a string in there, a range in there, anything in there almost literally. And in this case, also there's a range. Range tells me where to start, where to end, and what are the increments for it. So in fact, if you look at the reference also, it says start, stop, and then increment. When step is given, it specifies. Yeah, list of 4 elements. That exactly when I in this list of 4. I think it's. I'm just making sure that I'm reading it correctly. Start. Okay, so either I can give stop. So if I give stop, what happens? When stop instance is last. So I'm saying a range of 10. And in this case, what I'll do is print just I for now, team. I'm playing around with I. I want to see what happens with I. I is a counter. It'll go through this line 11 10 times and it'll print the value of I each time. Uh, okay, this number, that's fine. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What I want to print is a new result, R1 equals to N1, which is a constant. N1 is the number that we've inputted, star I, and print, oops, R1, all right? And I don't need to print this I anymore, and we run this code. So now we should be able to print whatever we want. So let us say I'm trying to get the multiplication table of number 77, and that is what it shows. But what I want it to be a little bit more presentable back to me, and that is where you can do formats of string, team. So it's a very simple way where I can add a little logic into it, where I say there's a f string, and in here, anything that I give in curl brackets becomes a variable. Okay, it's primarily what I can. Okay, what I want to do is I want to say 0 times 7 is 0. Sorry, 77. 77 times 1 is 77. That is how I want it to be displayed here. So my variables, which have value and can change. You understand, everyone? I hope it's no rocket science, right? What we're trying to do. My variable, which is holding a value, currently holds n1. And that is going to be constant. It will not change in this loop. It will go through lines 11 to 14, the for loop, 10 times. But each time n1 is constant. And now what I'm saying, so there's 77 times, I'll say a symbol like x. And then I have another variable called I in this case, and which is my counter, which keeps changing within the loop. So I have one which is not changing in the loop and one which is changing in the loop. And I want to write equals to R1. Do you see that? So I have 3 variables, all of them gone into the string as a formatting of that. So I'm using a simple um, way to be able to achieve this. You can always do concatenations of strings and do it. This just makes the life easier, team. So let's rerun this and give a number for 66 maybe. And there we go. So each time we're printing R1, and that is why we're getting that. Otherwise, this is what I'm looking at, 66 times 4. So anytime I want to be able to specifically go to a number, I have this multiplication table. You must think of a way, team, where maybe you should create multiplication table. Uh, I mean, it's easy till a certain number. So what are we doing here? Number one, there are a few defects that let's clean up whatever we've done there. So far looks good. All, I'm sorry, I didn't put my phone also on mute. Still early morning. Okay. All right. What I was trying to say, team, out here is that um, number one, I don't want to multiply it with 0. There's no point in it. I want it to start with 1 and end with 10. So if you look at it, the just like a list or an array or any other items that we were looking at where we're storing data, the count starts with 0. So what you want to say is don't start the count with 0, start the count with 1 and go up to 11. That's my stop where I want it to stop. If I add one more, then it's basically incrementing number of steps at each time. But otherwise, now I'm doing it a little bit more better. Let's run this. And let's say 75. So you have a 75 table. uh, How can you print them besides each other? How can you make, you know, more outputs of it? How can you customize it, make more effective? That something you can do as well, team. In fact, for example, I'm saying we're stopping at 11 out here, but let us say someone wants to stop it at go up to 45. So all that you're doing is you're taking another input. I don't need these as well, but I'll leave them. It doesn't hurt. And this is N2, and here multiply till. And I get a number. And basically what I'm saying then is in my range, this will be N2. Will it be +1? I'm thinking, team, because it will not go to N2 +1. It will only go to N2 count. And this is the count multiplied till. Should this work? Let's see. 44 multiply till. There we go. So this is what I'm looking at. Let's say I want to multiply it till 26. So it should continue to do that and give me there till 26. That is the power that Python or any programming brings, team. Once the logic is set, it is hardly fractions of seconds for it to be able to execute a large sets of computation information, team. Any questions on this so far? Can we do a few more program? Things like maybe, you know, on strings and so on. I'm just continuing with the team. There are a few concepts that we will learn while trying to achieve some of this. Let me know if there's anything you have in the chat. I don't see any questions. That's good. Okay, I'm done here. I'm done here. What are we doing next? Let's do something on strings, team. Not too much, just like simple things like um, palindrome. We know what's a palindrome, maybe. So reverse same as original. So what are we doing? We're taking some input as a string from the user. I don't need to do any conversion because inputs will come. So I'll just say text one. It doesn't have to be text, but whatever string we're sending. Let's say S1. That's a string. It could be number or it could be anything, but it'll take it as, even if it's a number, it's going to take it. Enter number. And then what are we doing here? How do I get S2? Which is nothing but a reverse of this. Look at it. This power of learning, team, has never happened earlier in our lifetimes. We always had to pause here, go to Google or tech stacks and look at all these forums and come up with what will help us. You have a live advisor, and that is where programming can be done much faster. which also means your learning can be faster. But slow it down, don't digest it, try and understand and read that code, what it is doing. Out here, team, it is using a simple method, which is basically saying, this is, okay, let's say S2 equals to S1 of, I can get something called as a substring, team, colon 5, enter, enter not number, enter string, okay, and print S2. Did I start this in a new code? Multiplication table, okay, loop I did. This is not even a loop. It's just simple reversing a string that we're trying to do. Ting, ting, ting. So for loops, okay, what am I trying to do here? Oh, I didn't read the code. That's what I was thinking. What happened? Where did I get lost? Let's read the code thing. So before I read the code, I just want to show you what this is doing. It is basically saying every string has, this is almost like a list for it. So there is 0 position, first position, second position, and so on. This is telling me get the position 1 to 5. That is what it is doing out here. This is telling me reverse a string. So basically, I'll tell you the difference, but let me run this first. I don't need the first one. That's the thing. I don't need this. Oops, I ran it 234 times, but the output came up quick. And the reason the total execution time was in seconds is not because computation is taking, it's my human inputs in between this computation that is taking time. So let's say I wrote something like this. I don't even know if it is a palindrome. What did it print for me? It did print palindrome. So let's do a better one, team. Ting, 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 ting. Oh, I'm cutting this code and taking it into a new block. That's the beauty of it, where I can look at, instead of opening new files each time or new programs, it is almost the same file within which I've embedded my code. So it's easy for me to just execute this. So let's enter something. No, let's enter 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, it's still taking it as a string. That's never a problem for it. Now, what did it print for line 6 out here? It printed 1, 2, 3, 4 till there. So it starts at the first position, goes till the fifth, but not fifth. It returns everything that is there in the string team. So it basically say, get me a substring out here. What is this one doing? It is saying, get me, okay, let's try and play with this and say, I have 2. Interesting, but let's enter something a little larger string. So that way it has more to play with. Only 2. So increment is 2 out here. So here, if I say 9 and run, then I'll explain it. It's been a while since I did this, so I'm just making sure that we understand what it's doing. Excuse me, I'm sorry. All right, enter string. This is a string that I entered. Let's give it a little bit spacing so I know where it starts from. The first one is printing, it's doing S2. So though it is replaced S2, it is again replacing. So the latest line is the most relevant line for us, correct? Now, in this case, what we're doing is, ding, 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 we're printing from V. Where is V out here? Reverse, VRE, V, all the way, it is going, there we go. I don't know if it did this. Why LRO? Ah, there we go. This is different. Sorry. See, it's starting with the first one, which is L, and then incrementing it with 2 each time. This is an increment team. So skip one and go to the next one. Skip one and go to the next one. Skip one, go to the next one. Till it is 9, but not 9. So it is saying start index, end index, and increment for a substring. That is what it's doing. What this does is, for entire string, when I say -1, it is decrementing it. So there is no number here, no number here. It is going to reverse the string. And the reason being, -1 is decrementing, but I'm starting with the end in place. So when I'm not specifying anything, it'll go till the end of the string and print everything from there. So what you're seeing here is nothing but a reverse of a string. So a smart way to do something when it comes to data, when we go to Pandas and MatPlotLib and SciPy and all of these team, it is very interesting on how you can represent data and how easy it is to make analytical decisions with it. And they come with their own internal libraries. Everything has a capability. So for example, if it is an integer, what can you do with an integer? String, what can you do? If it's an object, when we talk about classes, what can we do with it? Those become important. So now I'm entering a string. Let's do something. I don't even know how many H's I put. Palindrome. So it's basically, and uh, testing your code is very important, team. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and enter. So it's still a palindrome because when it's split in the middle, it knows that there's half this way, half this way, and it's going to compare that. So if it's an odd number, it's going to take that middle number to be available for both. So that's primarily how you're able to reverse a string. Now, you can also traverse a string. I mean, get things like length of a string. I should put a s2 dot length. No, len is a function, and I put s2 into it. And that's my length. So I can say f of length. Did I get it right? Of s2 is in curly brackets length of s2 and end of this. Uh, Couple of questions that I see in the chat, not too many, but let's see. All right, let's see, team. Ting, ting, ting. Length of S2 is all I'm printing. I'm going to hard code this. I don't want to keep entering strings. I'll just say S1 equals to something, definitely not a palindrome, but I'm just printing the length of a team. Why here? Let's do it at the end. And why am I doing it? So that I want to show you how we can iterate through a string. Run. Length of S2 is 18. So there are 18 characters that have been put in this team. That's basically what it's saying. So what you can do is you can also print for S in S2 and just print S. What it is doing, this one, team, is a simple loop. But for us, now it is going through each and every item in the string and printing that. Or if you want to print a specific position, you can always just say print S2, and I want the fifth. When I say fifth, it becomes a sixth character in that string, and it should be able to print that. So let's go and change the sixth character from 2, I guess, to Z, and rerun this code. And there you go. This is Z for me in the reverse string. And um, in the reverse string, but it should also have printed somewhere earlier. Nah, maybe I changed the wrong cat. Anyway, so you are able to go through strings team and be able to identify how to easily manipulate, understand, reverse. You can do things like mm, thinking, should I do so many thoughts that I have. Mm, give me a second, please. Any questions meanwhile? I've done a for loop. I think I should do a while loop before I go into anything else. And we haven't done classes and all, so we'll do them. So why do I need a loop called while loop if I already have I'm sorry, I lost my thought. I was looking at a list of programs that I could talk about, and one came up as, let's say, user access management. I'm just trying to explain a while loop team. My need is I'm giving 3 attempts per the user to type the correct password. So let's say I have the user one, and we will put it as a dictionary object. That way I can say that there is a username or email, whatever we say, and the value that I'm expecting the user to enter. Only one user is there at this point. Let's say KK. And there's another user. Oh, sorry. For the same user, the corresponding password that I'm saying is I'm expecting KK to enter 123321. This is the password. So I know where my user one name is. Now I'll say, I'll say user two, for example, or user log in, a better word, equals input, enter username, and user password equals input, enter password. Perfect. Oops. All right. So now we have taken the inputs. Now we have to verify. I have two verifications. So I can do two verifications in the same statement like this. Perfect. Where my username and user login are matching. See, U1 username and user login are matching, and U1 password and user password are matching. That gives me a print login success. Else, we could just say print login failed. This is perfect. This is exactly what we want. Let's test this in a different one. All with me, team? Is coding getting too heavy? I'm keeping hence some of these concepts simple. Hopefully it should be easy for you to practice. What is most important is during this week, take up this again and start trying to do the same way I'm doing it, team. If you need to use your own IDE, more than welcome to use. And none of these IDEs are complicated, so you don't need a tutorial on an IDE. But if your office work is using it, yeah, why don't you use it as well? Perfect. So I have this. I don't need this text, but that's okay. So let's delete it. Oops. Let's run this. So your username, and I'm entering the right information. Oops. and the password 123321. And it basically is a login success. But what happens if a login fails, team, and the user has no more tries left? So this is where the user, I want to give them certain number of tries. And team, you can also do additional verifications where you do one after the other rather than this. So you can use else if the username is correct, then I can say username correct, now enter password, something like that. Or you can do it all at a time. So the logic of two conditions in the same if, or you can also say else if. But this looks decent enough, so we're keeping it. Now, what are we saying? I have 3 attempts. So I will say my attempts equals at the moment 0. Each time the user enters username and password, I'm going to increment this by 1. So it's increment is basically, this is nothing but saying my attempts equal to my attempts plus 1. So shorter form. And I'm going to do this. If login is successful, I don't need to do anything. Do nothing. Look at this logic, team, how it's coming. This is very important. This is where if you're doing any kind of logic thinking or programming for first time, you have to think in a pure English format or your language format, and then think from the programming. So we're doing nothing if the login is success. But if the login is, uh, so I'm saying my attempts, let's start with 3, team. Why should we? And then each time I'll decrement it by 1, not increment it. And here, I'm anyway decrementing it. Now what I'm saying is, let's put this into a for loop. For I in range, my attempts 3, yeah, 3 times I want to execute this code. So if I want to execute this code 3 times, is that logic correct? My logic is not correct that way, team, because if I'm entering, it is not getting me out of it. It is still taking me into it. Why? Because login successful or not successful, it'll still repeat it 3 times. I want it to do while a condition happens. So instead of saying that, okay, I want you to loop arbitrarily while my attempts is greater than 0. So first it'll be 3, then it'll be 2, then it'll be 1. As long as it's greater than 0, I will loop through. Enter username, enter password. So here, login failed, print, try again. You have my attempts left. So to say that it's a format string going in, I'll just put an F in front of it, and there we go. So now what we've done is I will do this loop as long as my attempts, I have attempts, but is it still successful, team? Do you think it'll do what I want it to do? Oops. Something not correct? What happened? I commented this line. Okay, it was a syntax issue, I guess. Username is KK. Login successful. Now look at it. My logins are successful, but it's still doing it. What do I do? It's saying login successful, but it's still asking me to enter. Look at how the logic is important, team. And you need to login failed, try again, you have 0 left. So what I want to do is out here, login successful, print user logged in, continue. I mean, this should also be part of here itself. No, yeah, actually I'll put it here. So this do nothing is in fact dangerous. It was very easy to say if it matches, all I'm doing is login successful, but I also want to come out of this loop. While this statement is true, go through everything that is indented in this block and you'll keep repeating it. And if you don't have something like this, it will be an infinite loop because it doesn't change the number, it will keep going with the same value. But now that I have 3 attempts and I'm here, all I have to do out here, team, is break out here. There are two things, team, break and continue. Break gets me out of the while loop. Continue basically says do nothing anymore in this, go to the next one, and so on. So that's a very significant difference between them. And where to use what. Break is you are done with what you want and you don't need to loop anymore, come out of the loop. When we say continue, in this case I don't need to say continue, basically saying skip anything, return after this and go to next iteration. See, simple code logic, but how many logic changes had to be done because the initial design was not specified clearly by us, or we didn't do it. We just went randomly building it. And look at the amount of testing we're having to do to make sure if the code is working correctly or not. So this entire gamut will still continue for a very long time, team, where there's a lot of testing, there's a lot of coding, and you'll never get away from testing as a process. Who's assisting you in that? Is it automation tools, AI tools, is a question. Now what am I saying? So continue. So I'm saying out here, print may never get printed. If my brain is too fired with 2 hours back-to-back programming, then my logic also might go for a little toss. And so for the audience as well, I understand that you have to grind through some of this too. All right, what are we doing here, team? So while my attempts are correct, enter username password, I am logged in successful, break. So if I log in, I'm done first try, come out of it. If it's taking few more times, I'm attempting, but I'll continue from here to the next one. Even if I don't say continue, the same thing, but I'm just showing how it can be used. Now let's run. Let's enter a username. I'm entering wrong. And try again, you have 2 left. Good, thank you. So if I enter the right data, it should login successful user logged in, continue. Perfect. The continue is from here, team, not from the code word. Just say go on. All right, there we go. Okay, so that's a while loop where I don't know if it'll take, when not sure, how many times you need to iterate. Now, what are some simple errors that users may do? For example, here instead of decrementing, you're incrementing. Then what will happen, team? Big line of code, okay. Ding, ding, ding. What will happen to this? Can you imagine? Anyone? What could go wrong? What could go right? If I'm entering the right information, no problem. If I'm entering the wrong information, what's happening, team? So we are incrementing instead of decrementing. And that means, oops, Chrome hung on me. Okay, it's back. Because it is definitely using a RAM and storage to be able to complete this team. Google Compute Engine backend. All right. See, look at it. It's constantly increasing. It'll never reach the point where it can get out of it. So this is an infinite loop. It is never going to end unless you manually kill it or stop it. And that is where it is very important, team, for you to realize. What did it say as an issue? Interrupted by user. That's fine. Keyboard interruption. Sorry, you need to realize that your logic is going correct. And sometimes even if you don't change it, like a for loop, there's no counter inbuilt within while. So your condition has to, either you're counting or something has to change within it for it to come out of it some point. All right, makes sense? What's next? Can I do? We have to do lists, we have to do files. But I'm seeing, have we done good amount of coding for today? Do we want to do some more? Mhm. Let me see, team. Questions, please, anyone, in meanwhile. The nice one, shopping list and okay, I'm quickly going through audience questions if there's anything critical that I can handle. And team, just want to make sure, since today is day one and it is a lot of programming that we're going through, uh, I don't think it'd be fair to stretch it for a 4 full hours. So we might do a shorter one for today. But tomorrow we have to be ready for much more. At least maybe we can take a few minutes, 5 minutes break right now and have an hour more after that. That's what I'm thinking, but I'll wait for the audience. Work on Visual Studio, all good. Okay, shortcut, select part of Pro code you want to run and press Control Shift. Thank you, Suresh. Shortcut from you on. Just you're saying select which code you want and run that. Yeah, Control Shift on it. Yes, new. So even the new IDEs like VS Code and so on have this AI assistant. I just my question would be how powerful and how correct would be their results, all of them, even Gemini and so on. So it's good assistance, good guidance. We will need to do something ourselves. All the IDEs are coming up with some kind of plugins that are helping them through utilizing AI features within their existing platforms. Yes, I don't know the release dates and what features are available. So team 907, we're gonna take another 10 minutes break, if that's fine. And let's continue a few more where I wanted to talk about lists and how we work with them, how we can do some classes maybe, and then we can look at file handling and so on. Let's see how much of it we can accomplish today. All right, everyone, let me put a text here so you're all aware, and then so hash break till 9:15 team, 7 minutes. I'll pause the recording and we can restart it. It is 4 hours training and that's the reason. Let's do one more shorter session after a break and I know for people in India, it's pretty late. So, and I deliberately put it on weekends. So maybe we could stretch. Maybe next batches I could do on other time zone, which is comfortable for various other countries. I'm pausing the recording, team. We'll get started once we're back. All right, team, welcome back. I started the recording again. Let's continue with it for maybe an hour. At least we can cover a few things on classes and file handling, and then get into um, further things like API programming and so on in next session. All right, great. So I don't need this for now. What do we want to do, team? I want to talk about classes, team. So when we talk about classes, I don't know how easy it is for you all to understand the whole concept of object-oriented programming systems. So a class is like a blueprint. It tells me what uh, any object or an instance of that class should look like. Like the class decides. So there are certain things that are common with them. So every class, if you notice, has some parameters, which are your variables. And then you have your actions that are some functions or methods that we can perform. Those are the combination, team. So you can think of it more like a three-dimensional box. No more it is just like holding a list or a dictionary or an integer or a boolean. It is holding a lot more details. It also holds information. It also tells us what to do. So every object that belongs to a class. So what is a class? Let's say class can be something like a car, an employee, a shopping cart, or an e-commerce, or the class of users, or even something like a math object like a rectangle. What is it? We can start with that to understand. So any object that belongs to the class will have a blueprint of it. So car has certain information about it, like a make, model, year, horsepower, and so on, and you can do certain actions with it. So that is, those are your functions like drive, brake, and so on. The same with an employee. You can add employee, remove, increase the salaries, look at the leaves, and all of this. Every employee will have the same structure, same kind of information, and the actions. But depending on what data we store and what actions we're performing, each object has its own utility at the end of it, team. So object takes the blueprint and becomes one lifetime instance of it. Now, when it comes to classes in Python, it is very simple, team. What we're doing is we give it a name, we call it a class, and I'll say my rec. It's a name that I'm giving. Primarily, like I said, the classes have parameters or what data each object can hold. In this case, let's talk about a rectangle, team. What can a rectangle hold? A rectangle can hold primarily, there are only two things, team. There is a length and there is a width or height. So that is enough for us to do certain actions. Like what? I can look at an area of a rectangle. I can look at perimeter of a rectangle, perimeter of a rectangle. This becomes my actions. So within the same class, we're going to define both the actions and the arguments or the parameters for this. So when we talk about arguments, there is a way that you could initialize them. And anytime you create a class, you basically make an instance of it. It is not at all hard to understand the concept. It's very simple. It is just a couple of lines, and then I'll explain to you. What it does is, if I have parameters, on the keyword self is important in this team. Self basically says, for this instance of my class, there is a length variable, and that is equal to len1, I'll say. And there is also self dot h. I don't mind using L and H here as long as they don't get reused somewhere. Too small, that's there. I don't need a pass or anything out here. Now, what is happening is with this initialization, you are basically what doing is initializing object data, what data that object will hold. So as soon as you declare that object, you have something that is getting created using something similar like a constructor T. The syntax is very simple. It's a standard one, so Python recognizes it. It is double underscore init, double underscore. The inputs that we're giving by default is the self, and self is a keyword team, so you can't use that for other things like your variables or to store functions and so on. So self always refers to that instance of the class. So you can refer to any data or actions based on what is there out there. Now, what am I doing? Okay. So when I'm initializing this, the class, the object of the class, oops, self, comma, I'm sending length and I'm sending height. You are creating this class team. So um, at this point, all I'll do is print. So first, let's create a class. So what I'm saying, rectangle R1 equals my rectangle 1020. Perfect. There you go. And then to be able to get the length of R1, I say R1 dot length. Height of R1, I say R1 dot height. The same thing, I can repeat it and say R2. Perfect. Equals 30, 40. So now I have two different rectangles team. They're just created and nothing but they hold data. That is good. At least two storage information. And if I want to create anything as for this object, this is how I create. So if I do a similar thing like this, R3 is, and then I do not send enough information. It's basically having a syntax error itself saying that for that function, I mean, not syntax, it is executing and identifying where that issue is. You have two inputs going in, you're only sending one, missing one required additional argument, H. So the debugger is also important for you to understand what the issue is, team. Most of it should be plain English. Sometimes it could be a little gibberish that you could skip through. I'm sorry. Sorry. But at a learning stage, I think it's very important for you to keep an eye on them very nicely. So this is a challenge. You cannot be able to do an R3. That is great. Now, what I want to do next is, like I said, you can also do actions on a team. So in this case, there are two actions. Oops. One is, see, def, again, we've learned about functions. Init is a function belonging to this class myrec. I'm creating one more called area. Perfect. Ting, ting, ting. It is actually giving me both the code team. It's not a complex code, so instead of me wasting time in rewriting what it's doing, that's exactly what I wanted to do. It's created two functions for me. One is an area, one is a perimeter. Now, you don't have to retain the same names that they gave. You can also shorten it to what you want. You can say do A, and this is do P. That's the name that you're giving. You always refer to self as an object because that becomes key to know of whose length to get and whose height to get. Sometimes when you're comparing, you can send another object within it and be able to compare with the other object as well. So some of these exercises you should be able to observe that too deep. So now my class rectangle not only holds data and information, but it also can give me some output. So is it changing the length and the height of it? No, it is not. But what could I do? I could do something like, as soon as I say R1, you should also be able to see and dot what you could do, team. This simple representation tells me that these two icons, at least in this, and every IDE has similar representation, team, on your mouse over, that I have two actions that I can perform. This cube is showing me like a symbol of an action, And this other one within square brackets is saying that's data. That's data because I'm enclosing it in brackets. So L and H are data. I can get length and height like here, or I can perform the action. And to perform this action, there's no input or output. So I'll just call this. I don't know if I require to end it with brackets, but let's see. Did I delete R3? I deleted. Uh, my int DOP. Oh, I didn't even see. Now, what happened? No doc string. Hold on. Why is that an error? So first I'm getting area. Did I get the area? No. Basically, what we're saying here, team, is when I say none out here, and some of these are not essential, team. They're optional code, and you can start exploring them as we go forward. You're just defining for a developer saying that, listen, when you look at the code, remember that this function is going to return an integer, and this is also returning an integer. This one is not returning anything, initializer, because it just does a basic set of assignments of values. Now, in here, you're returning self.l and self.h. This is correct. And here you're returning 2 star. This is also correct. So where did it go wrong? And this is where I think I get more comfortable with the PyCharm ID or so on, because very used to everything that we see in that. But let's see. This is just methods. Let me put open script. Now, definitely I need to print this out, team. And I need to do something like area of R1 is what happened here? Oh, one more, sorry. Oops. Perimeter of R2. So the code that I already wrote, it is not doing any editing, team. If you observe the AI assistant, it is only doing it on the code that I might be writing. Looking at what I've written, it is predicting that probably you need this. So there are certain things like hallucinations, which giving us a bad output, or each time it's giving us something different. And believe me, team, when you are writing or trying the same, you may see subtle differences in the code that is coming there and coming here. There you go. So area of R1 is 200, area of R2 is 1200. And this is good because you have a simple way. Anyone who has to create a rectangle using my class has to provide length and height. You cannot do it without it. And only two things that you can do. You can just get the values of area and the perimeter. You can't change anything within or for that object. But there are instances where you would want to change, team. Like, for example, if you want to write a similar code, I think this guy will easily write it for us. If we say what we want to write, class for a car. So if I create a class car, what I'm basically saying that, so why I'm writing one more class, team, for practice. So when you looked at what we did once, you do it once more immediately, your retention is higher. So in here, I know that I need arguments. I need self, I need a make, I need a model. So I'll say MA, comma, MO, comma, let's do speed. And what you could do is, and this is very standard operations, team. So this I'm saying is not going to return anything. So none. And it has set my make and model. Let me also set the speed. So self dot speed, and look at it, it could make out that MA is make and MO is model, team. So you are trying to get faster and better at your programming, and the AI assistant should be able to give you that guidance. So try and capture these team, what it is doing, where it is helping you. Those observations are very key. Okay, make model speed. Now speed for every car, when it starts, I want to say that it is 0. So I do have speed here, but default, I want it to 0. So what you could do is, if you want an option where you're creating a car, but not necessarily sending all the information for it, uh, the speed will be automatically set to it. If I don't give a default value, I can't create it. So now I say my C1 equals perfect Toyota Corolla. Yeah, let's look at this. Nice. So I've created a new car. What is it? An instance. Any car that I create with this can only follow those guidelines. What are the parameters or arguments that it can carry? What are the methods that it can do? What I've done, it's Toyota Corolla right now, and I have not passed a third parameter team. If you observed this in the previous class, where I'm sending a third parameter, it threw up an error saying that I don't identify where to put that. But here, since speed is 0, I don't need to specify. However, I might have another car. Let's say I won't do copy paste. I'll look if this would, oh, there we go. And speed is, let's say, 15 miles per hour. Now, what is the difference? Do you see what I'm doing, team? Toyota Corolla, speed 0. Honda Civic, is the speed 15 or speed 0? What am I going to get? There we go. So you have an option. So this becomes optional. Optional for third R. And you can send star args also, team, when you don't know how many arguments you have. And each one is part of that list. Optional for third R, in this case, it is speed. Perfect. So you could create cars. Now, what is it that you could do, team? I mean, cars move, so cars add miles onto it. So the simplest things are things like you could park car, you could reverse and so on, but those are something that we cannot. So let's look at something that does on the speed. So I could accelerate, I'll say function ACC accelerate. And in this, what I need to send first the self object, the reference to it, and I'll say increased speed by. Now see, as my programming increases, as the number of collaborators that we increase, you want to start moving away from the C's and A's and M and MO to much more very specific. So as soon as you see the name, it should be easy for anyone to know, okay, I think increase speed by how much. So what are we doing here? We already have a speed, which is that self dot speed. And we want to, let me write a few code. Please don't write everything. Increase speed by this. Now, wow, it it followed my same pattern based on how I wrote. So just imagine, as a programmer, when you have your own pattern or style of doing things, your AI assistant with your coding is able to replicate the same way. It is not saying decrease speed by. It just said DCR speed by, because it understood this is increased speed by, this decreased speed by. What is the user trying to do is what is being guessed at. That's very nice. So I have just done this. Is that enough for me? Or why not? I'm a returning. So, okay, what I'm saying is there is a new speed, definitely, from what we were doing. I'm thinking a few more things where you have a limit to how much, what if it is already 0. So one test is if self dot speed is less than or equal to 75. Then I'll execute this. You see what I'm saying? If it is, eh, okay, you can, but what if they increase speed by, then I'll say new speed equals, see more code that I'm writing, and it's trying to help me with it. The first line is correct, self dot speed and increase speed by, I'm adding them, that's my new speed. If new speed is greater than 75, self dot speed is 75, and I'll print saying that max speed reached. Else I'm saying I'll increment it. Perfect. Yeah, this is the logic. Let's do this and try and think of how we're going to implement this now. Let's look at this. New speed is self speed and increase speed by. If it is greater than 75 by any chance, then I'll say self speed is this. Print speed cannot exceed 75. Nice. This is nice, team. This is where a lot of my English text saving is also done. I mean, if I'm someone who's new and want to type out my typing skills, then it'll help. And if you have a lot of time, but this is really saving time. So print speed cannot exceed 75. Else, I am trying to increase the new speed. What is this statement? No, this is something I was writing. Perfect. So what did I do? I didn't change this original self dot speed, remember team, okay? I created a new variable here called new speed temporarily within this function. So when this function gets called, this value will be generated by adding those to what I original speed is, which is stored in my data for that object. So that data is always stored for it. What is the current speed? And then increase speed by. So the logic is greater than 75, do it. Print speed cannot exceed 75. Else, give it. I may want to say new speed is. Why not? Uh, New speed. Now remember this team. In both your statements, there's only, I mean, in your if condition, if true, these two lines will get executed, and if false, these two lines will get executed. Always remember to get your data back into your object self dot speed before you end that function. So either one of these instances, it must happen. Otherwise, you're not changing what you're supposed to change, even if you're not actually changing and retaining it. So in this case, I don't need to retain it. I don't think this statement is necessary. Hold on. If new speed is greater than 75, so what if new speed went off to 110? So this is something not correct. New speed should never go more than 75. Okay. Logic is fine, team. There's nothing wrong with this. So similarly, I want to be able to break. So I want break um, type. I'll just say break type, team. In this, what I'll do is if break type or break strength, what I mean. If break strength is no. Okay, so this is a logic, but let's me first do just the break strength. What is it? If break strength equals hard, I'm sorry. Perfect. Let me do this again. If break strength is hard, self dot speed is 0. So we got it down to immediate, almost like hard stop. Speed is now whatever. In this case, else, or I don't know if it's going to be an LF. Yeah, LF, because Break strength is soft. Perfect. New speed equals to self dot speed. Perfect. Minus 10. I'm reducing it by 10 miles per hour. And if new speed is less than 0, see this, in this case you don't want to show a negative. Don't show any negative speed. We're not having a reverse in this. Let's say like a Formula One car, and hence you need to keep that new speed there. This is a very nice code that's coming out, team, as a logic as well. So my new speed has to be less than 0. If it's less than 0, set it to 0. And then speed is now. I'm saying speed is now. And then else if, else, okay, new speed. So where am I doing new speed? Out here. Okay. I'll have one more. I'll say else. So this soft, and then let's say medium, maybe. Not medium. What if I just say else? If user enters anything else, I'll just do this same thing. Is set to by -5. That's all. That's the only difference. Oh, no, by -20. I have to do it harder. This is for medium. elif. So I'm using else if team. So I have 3 options: hard, medium, medium. Okay, that's -10, -20, and hard. I don't need. Okay. Now, if you look at it, team, this is where we can use a function. This code is repeating. I don't need it to repeat. All that is varying here is the number out here. So if I send these, it should be able to do all of this. And that function doesn't have to be within. We'll do that tomorrow, team. Let's optimize this with creating a function, but that function could be self. I'll explain what I'm trying to think through. That's fine. You know what? I'm not overcomplicating it. We should be able to arrive at what we want to learn through this itself. Um, e- else is good. Else print invalid strength, break strength. Perfect. So what are we doing? This else is here. Just be careful with those indents, team. Make sure as you're going through more and more indentations, you have everything correctly aligned. So you have a class at one, then one tab, one more additional tab in. So I'm reviewing. So I have a break. Accelerate is good. Break has become long because I have repetitive code. We should be able to do this with a function. We will do that. And then I have 2 cars. So what can I do? Speed is now okay. Let's drive one car. Let's take C2 dot. I know the speed is at 15. I'll say if accelerate, and acceleration, does it do did I provide, team? How much is the input? Increase speed by, correct. So this by default I'll say is, let's say 10. Okay. So if the user doesn't send anything, I should be able to accelerate, or I should be able to do, let's say 10, and then 1 and then 2, just playing around to see how it is doing. And let's see what happens with this code. Okay. Where did my colon go? Okay, let's rerun. Whoa, even here, I didn't notice team. And I believe I was writing this. It was not the assistant. So when the assistant started suggesting, I believe I skipped it. That could have been a reason. Let's see now. Okay, new speed is 25, 35, 36, 38. So now, perfect. So basically, you are able to do things with your car team, and the same thing C2 dot. As soon as I write dot, I should be able to see what I do. Break, and in here, if I say hard, see, I've got all these options. So if I've got hard, then I'll again accelerate by, let's say, um, 40, and then break soft, but then accelerate again by something that takes me over. So I'll say accelerate by 100. Let me see what it does. And then I do medium, and then I do, that's it. Maybe hard break again. We've finished. So let's see what it does. So from 15, 25, 26, and then hard, and then we should have medium, soft, and then hard team. This will be interesting. And if you notice, there is eventually what you're getting is your speed at various points in time. These are the data team that we want to build science on. These are the sets of information that we want to display not only in charts, but also to do projections and analysis for us. So I started with 15, 25, 35, then 36, little acceleration. Then I had to really slow down, and speed is now 0. And then suddenly I could get onto 40. Speed cannot exceed 75, but how much did it go to? So here, when it goes to max speed, so I'll also say speed set at 75. So yeah, I'm very tempted to clean up. In this, I don't need anything. New speed, self speed. No, self speed and increase. Nah, forget it. I think it's better to write a new program. I just wanted to put these two, save lines of code. In fact, what I should do is take this code, maybe as is, put it into maybe ChatGPT, or what am I saying? Can you kindly, I am trying to learn Python classes. Can you see if this below code can be further optimized? I would be interested in lowering lines of code and improving efficiency. Let me zoom this one. All right. So that's a prompt team. And that's something you will learn as part of your prompt engineering, where you're just not saying I'm giving you a code, just improve it. You're trying to give a background. You're trying to give what your expectations are clearly, and also say that stay within a specific area of improvement, like lines of code and improving efficiency. Let's see what it comes up with. And the same, let us try and put it in a few more. Oh, but I have to paste the code. But let me paste this in a text below. Prompt. Okay, cool. So I have a prompt. I put it in ChatGPT, and now let me get the code. So I'm copying the and pasting this code, team. I'm not taking it as a file, so there should be a copy here somewhere. Copy. Hit a Control A. Things should work. Class for car. Ting ting ting. Everything came. The red underlines are just English, or it's looking at a grammatical. Let's see. This is the code I sent. Combine similar logic in the F break. There you go. Soft, medium, hard can be simplified instead of having separate conditions. That's exactly what I thought. That's nice. Removing redundancy, speed handling. Speed checking logic is repeated multiple times. Okay. See, we're checking the speed multiple times, and each time we check, it is definitely taking certain amount of time. So that can be extracted into helper functions. Helper functions are something that is important as well. We look at them. Improving naming conventions. Sure, F accelerate and F brake can be renamed to more meaningful accelerate and brake. So there's document styling, and there's improvements that are suggested on that side also. Simplifying the initialization of a car. The constructor, the init that we did, that's the constructor, can handle default speed more concisely by directly assigning the value. I don't know what it says, but let's see what its optimized code is. Shall we take it into a new code block here? And this is what ChatGPT gave us. I really liked the English that it gave, team. Let's look at this. Lines of code is something. But the way it concised and it told me what it could do and what it did. So I would love to keep that also. This is the text block. Here. Yo. Ding, ding, ding. Good. I've got this. I'm going to share this link, team. See if you're able to at least view it to what we're doing. I won't give the edit right, so that way accidentally you won't make anything or deliberately. That's your call. What am I doing here? I'm looking at this code. There we go. Nice. See, speed equals 0. Didn't I set that? Okay, that's fine. Make model speed. Okay. Accelerate, brake, naming has changed. Minimum of, look at this logic. Instead of giving that entire thing, it said minimum of self dot speed and increase speed by 75 and 75. So current speed and increase speed, or 75. If it is more than that, just do minimum. And we're setting it to self dot speed. Very good. We use the min function. And the new speed is self speed. Okay, this is the variable self speed. And we actually putting an if statement within our format of the string, where we're saying that if self dot speed. You can hopefully take it to the next line for readability. Even this is speed increasing, set to 75. Okay, fair enough. No arguments on this. Let me quickly share, team. I see, but thank you so much. There's like a whole lot of you who stayed here. Link copied. The reason I'm saying it was a long session, team. I didn't know how you will be able to handle it, and if it will be too much of a load. I shared a link in the in the chat, team. Can you check it? Let me know. Questions. Let me see any questions meanwhile. Did you like the session, team? How did you feel it was? Was it something from a speed perspective and so on? Maybe when you join in tomorrow, you should give me more inputs on it, or coverage. I believe topics wise we're covering. We still have to get into file handling. That's should take about half an hour. Since we're playing around as well, we're not just blindly writing code. We're looking at doing a lot more than we typically can achieve. Okay, break. This again, max of self speed and brakes effect. Okay, everything else is the same, team. So not much improved code, but good, because it didn't know what to do with this. It thought that it definitely wouldn't have changed this information, team. Why that would have happened is because you would notice that a user is giving this, and a user maybe has a specific direction. So if the user wants to use certain data for a training model and then a testing model, then we bifurcate. So if I'm giving this, I'm not training it, I'm not testing it, I'm just making it calculate for me at the moment. All right, team, we're about 10, so that's about 3 hours with including the breaks that we had. I think it should be good heavy load on programming for today. Are you able to access the document that is shared? Can I get that confirmation? Okay, no access, no access. What does it say? Need access to the link. Let me see. Share owner, 16 people would like access. I see. I need to give this access right now. Do I need to give access? Okay. I can give, I'm giving viewer, maybe commenter also. That'll be good. You can comment on anything that is happening here. Message to everyone. You should. And comment too. So I've got 16 requests so far from the ones. I should be getting many more soon. And if I get more, I will accept them, team, if you're sending it. Yeah, there's more coming in, so I'll provide the access. All right, great. So I think, do I have any other questions, team, that I can help you with? So the code is there, everything's accessible. And I'll see you tomorrow. That's the schedule, 7 a.m. my time. And we'll continue from where we left off, team. Great. Thank you all. Have a great day, great evening for most of you back in India as well. And I'll see you back tomorrow, same time, 7 a.m. Thank you. Bye. Thank you all.